Today, I'm super excited to welcome Liza Gershman to Google. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's your first time here with us?
It's my first time here, and I'm really honored to be. I've always wanted to come to Google, so I'm very excited and honored that you've all taken time out of your really busy days to come be here and learn about Cuba and eat the amazing food that the team has prepared. I'm really thankful to everybody on the Google staff and also to my awesome publicist, Andrea Burnett, who organized this, and then also Kirk Dye, who is my right hand on all my projects. So thank you guys so much for being here and for having me, and it really is an honor to be at Google. You're the first stop on the book tour. So this is very exciting. The book is official today, right now.
I love it.
So yes, it's Amazon released it today officially, and my publisher sent out a blast. So this is really fun to have Google be the very first stop. So
well, what better place to start a fun adventure than Google Land?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, so you're not technically a chef, right?
Right.
Neither am I, thank God. You're a photographer. So anybody who's seen the book, it's all about these beautiful photos. So tell us a little bit about how that became a career writing cookbooks.
Sure. Actually, it's a bit of a long story. I'm a photographer and a writer, and I'm a great eater. Aren't we all great eaters?
Amen to that one.
So people always ask me, this is my 12th cookbook, and people ask me, how do you write cookbooks when you don't cook? And the simple answer is I am great at research. People give me their recipes. I'm very curious, and I love to eat. Just because I don't spend time in the kitchen, I save that for the experts who won't burn things and ruin things. But I am great at eating. I'm great at making reservations. And this book is not just a cookbook. It's a food book. And it's something so much different from a cookbook. It is a connection with Cuba. It's about a place. It's about people. It's interviews with restaurant owners. And it's recipes from people in their home kitchens in Cuba and people in their restaurants and friends, people who have become my dear friends over the last 13 years that I've been going to Cuba. So it's a story of the island. It talks a little bit about the politics of food. Food is political anywhere you are, but in Cuba, food is especially particularly political.
Yeah, I thought it was a fascinating glimpse into kind of an opaque culture for many of us. So how did you start, going down to Cuba? What was your first reason? And then you kept going back?
I did keep going back. So it's one of the few places that I have gone repetitively. I really believe, life is so short and there's so many places to see. You need to keep experiencing and exploring. But Cuba and I have a thing. We are in love. And the first time I went was 2003, and I went with Global Exchange. It was an educational exchange tour, and it was the only way to go. When I went, there were no other tourists. There was my tour group, and at the moment in time, that was it. And we had to stay with our guide. There were 13 of us. He had a script. By the end of the week, we could very much tell it was a script, and he broke it a little bit and said "Ooh, I'll tell you, but I might get in trouble." And it was just a very different time and place then. It really was right before 2003. It was many years before the Cuban government decided that individuals could own their own businesses. So it was very much like the old ideology, the old way of thinking in Cuba. And I am really grateful that I got to see that. So even then, just my first moment off the airplane, I felt like I was home. And I don't know, if you've had that experience where you've gone somewhere other than your home and you've had such a strong, emotional connection that it's the scents and the sounds and the visuals, and it just feels like this is part of me already. It's already built into my DNA somehow, even though as far as I know, I'm not at all Cuban. And so that was it. I had this trip, and I was really intrigued and interested in anywhere that you say nobody's going. Sign me up. How do I get there? So for me in Cuba, that's why I went then. I had just finished graduate school. I have a master's degree in English and American literature. And I took a year to travel afterwards because I didn't know what I was doing with my master's. I wasn't there to teach. I was there.
Join the club.
Right. I was there as a personal indulging moment where I wanted to talk about literature in this really dorky way that nobody else wanted to. And so I went to grad school.
I was an art history major, so I'm with you.
And you guys probably all understand too. There's probably something that every single person in this room is an expert at or really curious about that you're general friends do not want to know about, right? So that was me and books, and that was then me and Cuba. And so I went and I loved it, and then I didn't go back for a long time. There wasn't an easy way to do it, and I wanted to make sure I went legally and that I was doing things on the up and up, and I was curious about so many places in the world. So I've been really fortunate and blessed to go to 51 countries, and that was I'll be impressed by that when I get to 100. Until then, to me it's nothing. But I've been really fortunate to travel a lot, and so I didn't go to Cuba for a long time. And then I was at a talk in New York. Many things in my life happen really serendipitously, and all the good things do. I was at a talk in New York I'd been invited to, and the author was speaking about a book she had just done on Cuba. Damon Seeley, hi. Damon's my best friend from high school, so that's really nice. He's a Googler.
I love the Google connections. Welcome.
So I was at a talk in New York, and I didn't know the author was speaking about Cuba. And she spoke about Cuba, and I went up to her afterwards, and I said, oh my gosh, I've been to Cuba. I loved going. I would love to take you out to coffee or a drink and talk more. And she said, oh, sure, here's my contact information. And, like most people, she assumed I would never follow up. But then the next day, I was on her phone, like, what? I'm here. When can we go to lunch? When can we go to coffee? So anyway, we met, and she said, as it turns out, I'm writing a book about Cuban food, and we need a food photographer. And I said, I've done 11 cookbooks. Maybe I could photograph yours. And she said, great. The publisher I'm working with is called Skyhorse. And I said, I've done 8 cookbooks with Skyhorse. That's probably a no-brainer for them.
Small world.
Right? Small world. And so serendipity, right? And I don't know if you believe in signs or not. I'm kind of superstitious, and when things are that in my face, I'm going to pay attention. So even if it's just not coincidence, whatever you want to call it, I listen. So she and I went and met with the publisher, and long story short, she did not work out for the project for the publisher ultimately, and they said, Liza, we know you can write. Will you please just write this book? And so I said, sure, but I now have to go back and do all this research. And they said, okay, we'll get on it, right?
Aw, shucks, I gotta go to Cuba.
Darn it. Exactly. So that led to a 3-year true love affair with the island. And I've been going, last year I spent more nights in Cuba than I did in San Francisco.
Wow.
I have incredible friendships there. I'm friends with artists and painters, musicians, writers, and also I'm friends with all these economists and engineers. It's such a fascinating place. Like, your taxi driver in Cuba likely used to be a chemical engineer, or likely used to be a physicist. And, the person that's making your sandwich most likely is an economist and has a master's degree. It's just the way their culture is. And I'll explain all that in a minute, but if you can remind me, please, I'll talk about that. But an average Cuban salary is $25 a month, and if you have a month, and if you have a high-paying professional job, it's about $45. If you work in the tourism industry, yeah, exactly. So if you're like the top surgeon in Cuba, if you're the very top surgeon in Cuba, you're working on the Castros and you're having bonuses. Right. But if you are guy number 15, you are making $45 a month, and that's not enough to do what you need to be doing for living in a comfortable way. So then you come and you get involved with tourism. And if you're a driver, you can make $20 for a ride from point A to point B. Or you can make food, and you can, at a restaurant, a normal tourism restaurant or just not a touristic place, but a restaurant that somebody in this room might go to, a meal might be $25, $30. So right there, the benefits are so high for Cubans to be involved in the tourism industry. And out of all of the countries I've been to on the planet, they are by far the most entrepreneurial people I have ever met in my entire life. They are scrappy and inventive, and they're like MacGyver. They will make a car out of this thing, and that thing. And, you have no idea how that works, but suddenly it's a car, and it's also cool looking, It
sounds like that there's no choice.
There's no choice. Be that way. It's out of necessity.
Traditional norms are not going to get you where you need to be.
They're not. And people really think out of the box in Cuba because the box doesn't work or it doesn't exist, right? So,
yeah, I was really interested in it. You talk about food as really being like more than just food. It's woven into their culture. It's just part of every aspect of life there. Talk a little bit about that and what that means.
Absolutely. So I think we're so fortunate, particularly all of us in this room. I'm assuming incorrectly, most likely, but I can eat every day, right? It might not always be at Gary Danko, but I can eat every single day.
Any one of you with a badge can eat every day.
Every day.
And I
right.
bet that you do more than once a day.
Exactly.
Here.
And
you're super lucky.
Exactly. So anybody in Cuba who grew up during the 90s or alive during the 90s went through this time period they call the special period. And the special period was the least special period of Cuba.
It's like a branding exercise more than anything, it sounds like.
Yes. So the special period was when the USSR at the time pulled out and Cuba was left with literally no international support. And they were fending for themselves. And Cuba is an island, so one would assume, they're eating fish all day, they're growing vegetables, fruits, no big deal, they can absolutely sustain themselves. But it's just not woven into their culture that way, and because of a number of governmental regulations, people are not allowed to fish because they can't have boats. People are not allowed to grow their own produce unless they live in the countryside. You can only live in the countryside if you were born in the countryside, or if you don't have that opportunity to have been born in the countryside, you can purchase fruits and vegetables. But if you're a farmer, you have to give a certain percentage to the government, and then you can maintain the rest for yourself and sell a very small portion. Well, when you take the vegetables from the farm in the countryside and you get on the highway to come to Havana, where the biggest population is, to sell the vegetables, there's probably a roadblock, there's probably some kind of checkpoint, and something will happen. So a lot of the people in Havana are not getting the amount of vegetables they need. Not only that, but if you imagine a country that has the most chemical-free fertile soil on the world and the most pristine living reef on the world, and you're not allowed to have a boat, so you can't effectively fish for the reef. It's not in your culture to swim.
Interesting.
Right, because it's an island where people have spent decades escaping.
Right.
So people don't learn to swim.
It's a little bit like Alcatraz.
It's a little bit like Alcatraz.
Wow.
Okay. So for every single thing I have to say that is a concern, there are so many positives that outweigh the concerns.
Sure. There's real challenges.
There are real challenges for
yeah.
Cuban people. And I could explain, if we just talk about San Francisco right now, I can tell you how I've seen it change in my lifetime. And I can, there are no homeless people in Cuba. There's no gun violence. There's nobody who's addicted to drugs because they don't have drugs. They don't have guns. Every single person has an education. Every single person on that island can read. There's no AIDS. Very little cases of STDs. There are so many remarkable things, and there are constraints. So it's a complicated place. Whenever I bring people to Cuba, which I do all the time, people always come with some kind of a preconceived notion, or they want to, is this right or wrong? And I find that particularly my friends who are in their 50s or older come down and they have an idea and they want an answer. Is this a good or bad place? And it's not. It's a complicated place, right? It's a complicated place. And but there's so many wonderful things. So food is changing, and food is, I think, in any culture, a great way to really see what's happening. Who are they trading with? Where are they getting influences from? How are they learning and expanding? What are they doing to be innovative? You can really see that because the thing that every single person on the planet does has to eat.
We gotta eat.
We gotta eat.
Yeah,
every person on the planet
together, right?
eats,
it's
right?
a great unifier.
Right. Not everybody plays music. Not everybody sings. Not everybody can do math. Not everybody goes running. But every single person has to eat. So you can see so much about a culture in their food. And the food in Cuba has really changed over the last few years with the growth of tourism. And in 2010, the Cuban government allowed Cubans to, for the first time since the embargo, for the first time to open their own businesses. And part of, if you're going to open your own business, you want to open it in the tourism sector, right? Because that's the way you're going to make the most money. So the way to do that, many people opened up restaurants in their own homes. So the Paladars initially were, and it was fun to go to them. They were, it was one room, and you'd go and you sit at the one table in the room, and the mother or the grandmother would cook for you, and you would eat the meal, and then you'd pay some money. Now, with the growth of tourism, Paladars have become more like actual restaurants, and Havana, in particular, is getting some restaurants that are as high-end as things you would see in San Francisco, which is really tremendous to see that change over the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting for people. there's just so much potential and promise for the Cuban people in that, because more people are being employed outside of governmental jobs, so they're being able to have higher salaries.
I was really interested in the limited number of ingredients
Oh, yeah.
that repeat in the book.
Yeah.
Obviously diversely expressed, but talk a little bit about why that is. We're dealing with a small subset of things.
So back to what I was speaking about earlier, is part of the complicated nature of the island is when you have an embargo for so many years, you're not getting seeds from other populations, you're not trading with people. And so Cuba in itself grows very few things. Their soil is absolutely wonderful, and they basically grow plantains, bananas, a lot of root vegetables, pineapple, but they're not growing avocados, for example. They're not growing heirloom tomatoes. They're not growing mushrooms. They're not growing olives. All of the things that we kind of take for granted that we think
Californians are all like,
right? I know, no avocados, which is that for me is always
or heirloom tomatoes.
I know,
what are you
heirloom
talking
tomatoes.
about?
So that's something. When I was there a few trips ago, maybe it was last year, there was a group of German farmers who had been there, and they were all in their late 50s and early 60s. And these were a group of 10 men who had all, when the wall came down, they were responsible for seeding and supplying all of the farming culture.
Wow.
Yeah. So they came to Cuba to look and see if that was possible. And one guy was the potato guy, one guy was the tomato guy, right? Each person had their specialty. And they, at the end of the trip, which is when I met them at the end of their trip, they said, it's so complicated. It's muy complicado, right? It's so complicated and frustrating that, and they've already been through that. They've already been through their own food revolution. It wasn't for them.
You're coming from that background to say
Exactly.
it's complicated. It's pretty complicated.
It's pretty complicated. So when people are coming with me and they ask what to pack, I always say, if you can't get it camping, you probably can't get it in Cuba, which is a great rule of thumb. And it helps you really imagine, can I get deodorant when I'm camping? No. Can I get, is there a store where I can buy lemonade? No. Is there a place where I can get jalapenos? No. So I always say, if you can't get it camping, you probably cannot buy it in Cuba. So, and also the government they've brokered deals with companies for one product, right? So let's say you go into a grocery store, the shelves will be sort of stocked. But they have one brand, so they might have 4 rows of this one brand of oil. But here we have in Mill Valley. How many of you have been to the kombucha aisle in Mill Valley at Whole Foods? It's the whole wall, and it's 100 kinds of kombucha, right? But that's not the way it is in Cuba. You have one product for every single thing that you have. And luxury, if you go into the 5-star hotels, which they're really not 5-star to us, but if you go into those hotels, the tourists, the shops in the hotels are selling Suave as the fancy shampoo. And so it's really, we're blessed in so many ways, but just our access to products extends to food. Also, Cubans are on a ration system. So the Cuban government automatically, just if you're born, you get an education, you get health care, you get housing. It might not be the most ideal, but you still get housing. It's a complicated system of who do you know and how do you know them, depending on the hierarchy of what you get. But you're given a ration book, and the ration book covers your food for 20 days of the month. And what it covers is not enough for protein, and it's not enough for, it's very minimal and basic. But a lot of Cubans, that's what they exist on. And unless you have this extra job, or you work in tourism, or you're doing multiple things, you're renting out an Airbnb room in your house, that's what you're living on. But everybody has something. It's just not quite enough. It's never quite enough. So
it's fascinating. Chef, are you about ready to kick off our demo? Yeah, Chef Christy is going to actually prepare something delicious for all of us.
Great.
What are we making today?
Oh, we are making
Chef?
a chicken dish. We're making the mojo chicken.
Mojo chicken?
Yes.
All right. Well, a little secret I'll share with you. The first step of the mojo chicken involves the loudest blender on earth. So we're going to focus on Chef for just
Before
a minute.
we do the blender, can you raise your hand if you've been to Cuba? I'd love to know who in the room has been to Cuba. Awesome.
Oh,
great. That's more
great.
than I anticipated. So that's
Does Miami count?
It does not. It's very Cuban, but it's a world apart. So
Right, yeah. It's Cuba, U.S.
So the question was, in Miami and on the East Coast, there's so much great Cuban food, and what are the differences? And primarily the difference is access to ingredients. So Cuban chefs in Cuba are so limited on ingredients. And if somebody like myself, let's say I wanted to bring sun-dried tomatoes in a bag and give it to a chef friend. That chef friend, if somebody from the government came into their restaurant and saw that they had sun-dried tomatoes on their menu or in a meal, that person could go to jail. So it's not worth the risk for them. So here's a story that Kirk reminded me on the drive down here that you guys might want to hear about. Beef is totally prohibited in Cuba. It is only reserved for tourists. If you kill a cow, the penalty is a lifetime in jail. And
a lifetime
in jail. And if you murder somebody, it's 10 years. So a person, human person.
That's interesting.
Yes. So if you are caught with beef illegally, the penalty is very high, even if you haven't killed the cow. So I have a friend whose husband just spent 4 years in jail and got out this week, thankfully, because he was driving on the highway and there was a man that he knew. Cuba's really small, so everybody sort of knows everybody, or you're a friend of a friend of a friend. It's like
Google.
It's like Google. Sure, no, it's much smaller. It's 11 million people, but it really, I always say to people, Havana is the size of Union Square in the Tenderloin, and then the neighboring, that's it. That's where the highest concentration of a population is. So if you're in Union Square, you might run into your friend, like raise your hand if you've ever been downtown and seen someone you know, right? Right, so it's like that. Okay, so he saw someone he knew on the highway who needed a ride. Everybody's always needing a ride because most Cubans don't own a car. Because a car in Cuba, a beat-up car could be $15,000. A new car from China could be $250,000, $75,000 for something that's from the 90s. Anyway, so most Cubans don't own a car. So this man needed a ride, and the other man didn't check in the bag. Because why? I wouldn't. If you needed a ride, I would not say what's in your backpack, right? So the other man had beef, 4 pounds of beef in the bag, and they were stopped at a checkpoint. And my friend's husband was told by the police, well, you're the driver. You must have known what was going on. You're going to prison. So for 4 years, he's been in prison, and he just got out this week, thankfully. So,
Woo! All right, well, treat that steak with a little bit more respect, huh?
Right.
What do you think, Chef? Fire this thing up. Everybody bear with us for 1 second. I promise it'll be delicious and worth it. Oh, come on, Chef. I thought I was going to be like way louder. There we go. What is a bathtub pig, and why is that a good thing and not something that terrifies me?
Great. So during the special period in particular, when people had even less access to food, people were really surviving then on maybe a piece of bread in the morning and a glass of water with sugar in it. They were eating terrible things like pizza dough, and then they would put condoms on top of the dough and melt that in place of cheese. It was a very dire plastic. It was the 90s, that was an incredibly dire time in Cuba where there were no resources for food. And yet here it's an island. They could fish, they would be, but it's very complicated, right? So anyway, there were no resources for food that the government was willing to allow the people to have. And so people would make a trade with somebody and get a piglet, and then they would bring it to their home because it was illegal to do this, and they would raise it in the bathtub, and then they would slaughter it, and then to make money and have food to feed their family for the year, they would sell it off to their neighbors discreetly, and they would keep some for themselves. So those are bathtub pigs.
So this was a common practice there's bathtubs full of pigs.
Yeah. So every Cuban has a workaround for everything, right? So the fix is, all right, we're not allowed to eat pork, but I need protein. I'm going to go get a pig and raise it in my bathtub. I mean, Cubans are so genius this way. Everything has a workaround. They have a black market that the government just looks the other way about. It even has a website, and it's called Revelico. And if you need something, you go to Revelico. And if you need to, let's say I'm a painter. Right now, there is an incredible shortage of artistic supplies. And there's no canvas anymore. You can't get white paint. So all of my friends who are painters are having this extreme freak out about not being able to make art. So naturally, when I come down, I'm bringing supplies. But they're inventive. So a friend of mine he found an article that was about how the Egyptians made paint. So he's been making paint. He's been making paint the way the Chinese were making paint. So I might not do that, because I'm a lazy American. Not that all Americans are lazy, but I am probably not going to.
Used to having what you need, right?
I'm used to being able to go to a paint store, and if I can't, then I'll probably give up and move on to another project. But a Cuban's not going to give up. They have, an idea and they're sticking with the idea and making the idea happen. It's just part of their culture. So that's really a remarkable thing about their culture that I love.
Amazing. Yeah, no,
it's
absolutely.
Amazing. It's a huge inspiration for me to be there and see how inventive people are and their determination for things and for change and their allegiance to family and friends and the social network that they've developed that is community-based. Because when you don't have the internet in your home and you don't have your phone and you need information, the only way to get it is to ask somebody. And so it's a gossip society, right? Everything happens through word of mouth. So if you have a question about something or you want to, is it going to rain today? How do they know? Is there a meteorologist they can get a hold of? No. But when I'm in Cuba, sometimes I'll text somebody in America and say, what's the weather forecast for da-da? And they're always wrong. And then I ask my friend's mother in Cuba, and she'll say, oh, it's raining in an hour. You know, they just know. So
that's fantastic. I think that we could do with a little bit more of that.
I agree. I agree.
Chef, what you want to talk about a little bit? What you're doing over here?
Yeah. So I just I tossed some yams. So and I always like to point out that a lot of recipes will say put them in a bowl before you toss them. There's no reason to dirty a bowl. Just go ahead and toss them on the sheet pans.
Dirty the sheet, you're going to dirty anyway. Exactly. I like your style.
Right? So I always like less dishes. So just a little bit of olive oil, salt, some seasoning, and we're going to pop these in the oven. And then for the mojo dish, we're serving them with the yams, but also with some peppers and onions. So I'm just sauteing. I'm going to put some
Can everybody hear Christy? Okay, great.
Can you guys hear me? I'm going to put some wine in here, reduce it a little. And then we have the chicken. I made the mojo sauce. I put it onto tiny whole chicken. We've had one already marinating, so we're just going to go ahead and put that in there, pop it in the oven, and let it go.
It smells amazing already. I'm super excited. Just scooch us out of your way whenever.
Pop these in here.
Ooh, surprise, surprise. I can
delicious.
see the finished product in there already. It's TV magic. We'll pretend. It's okay. So I also heard, similar to lots of big cities, there's like Little Italy. And how is that possible within the tiny Union Square footprint of Havana that they've got these other culinary influences coming to life?
So the only sub-neighborhood they have that would be like that is they have a Chinatown. And which surprised me the first time I went to Cuba. But they had a huge Chinese influence of people coming from China to build things. And then there's been a big Italian influence in the cuisine. You can always find pizza or pasta on any menu, pretty much, which is also surprising, but it's delicious. And they have tomatoes. They just don't have heirloom tomatoes. So they have the right ingredients for that cuisine. I'm always telling them, you've got the right ingredients for tacos. Let's make some.
Oh, yeah. You're going to bring tacos to Cuba.
I'm going to bring tacos to Cuba, exactly. I'm always like, let's have a burrito today.
Well, you're from California, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what California girls should do. We propagate tacos around the world.
Exactly.
I love it. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting for all this magic to cook down? You think of Cuban food, you think of all this spice and seasoning and these strong flavors, but they don't have a lot of ingredients. So are we being influenced by the American interpretation of Cuban food, or how do they really bring that to life?
Sure, it's a little bit of both. There are some dishes, like the dish we're eating today, the mojo sauce is really prolific in Cuban cuisine, and it's very flavorful, very spicy. The national dish of Cuba is ropa vieja, and that is the most delicious shredded beef if they can get it. Otherwise, they use pork, and that's in a tomato sauce that's really wonderful. So they do have some spices, absolutely. A lot of what we think about is an American interpretation, just like, Mexican food here, if you go to Oaxaca, it's not the same, right? So yeah, similar, but they definitely, the culture is spicy in a way. It's not hot in flavor. Cubans in general don't like hot temperatured food. They're very resistant to pepper. They don't understand, why would you put that on your food? It's so hot. They don't have a lot of hot peppers in their cuisine, but they do have a lot of rich garlics and onions and things like that. So you get a lot of flavor from that. Yeah.
Yeah, so if beef isn't available to regular people, is there a big divergence between what tourists eat in Cuba and what Cubans eat in Cuba?
Absolutely. 100%. Tourists have a much richer, and I talk about this a lot in my book, about how, these recipes, so many Cubans will never be able to experience some of these dishes. If you work in tourism, then on occasion you have enough money, or, maybe you have a friend who works in a restaurant. If you work in a restaurant, sometimes you order, there's a saying in Cuba about it where you order more than what you think you're going to sell so you can give it to your staff and they can take it
Family
home.
meal,
Family
yeah.
meal, exactly. So lobster, for example, is another thing that's forbidden to anybody who's not a tourist, but if it's a restaurant, maybe the lobster guy had 10 lobsters a day, you're only selling 2, you might buy them all so everybody can eat, which Cubans take care of each other very much, which is another really remarkable part of their culture. So there is a huge difference, and it's changing a little bit as people, as tourism dollars are coming, people are getting more money, and everyone has somebody in the family that works in tourism, so it's trickled down. People are always working for their family and for their friends and supporting them. The traditional meal you might eat if you don't have access, you definitely eat a diet, a lot of beans and rice, but it's mostly rice heavy with very few beans, and then eggs. You'd have a lot of eggs, a lot of bread, and maybe some chicken if you can get it. That's the most common, and then very little vegetables and fruit. So, yeah.
Interesting.
But it's all in the book. You can read in detail about it, particularly if you read the introduction. That's where you can really learn about all the changes in food over the last few decades.
Did you have a question over there? Okay, so this is a fascinating question, and I want to hear it. So one, can you talk a little bit about distribution network, knowing there's a lack of road infrastructure and maybe electricity for refrigeration and all that? And then secondarily, how do those people who are running restaurants get their food?
It's a very complicated situation.
Es muy complicado.
Exactly. Muy complicado. I always have to be thoughtful about what I say because I am mindful of my love of Cuba and wanting to go there. So I have to be very considerate about how I phrase things. It is a place with a lot of complicated rules that are ever changing and a complicated infrastructure. The roads are not the best, and having a car or a truck traveling from a farm into the city, they just don't have the equipment to do that really. So the flow is limited, and the supply is limited, and the restaurants operate through the black market almost entirely.
Yeah, so even though the travel industry is approved, you still have to go black market to get your ingredients.
So government-run hotels and restaurants have very terrible ingredients. And the service is something to...
I will say maybe not the best.
That's it.
I haven't been, but I heard from someone that it was not the best.
So restaurants that are now becoming more Western, I guess you'd say, or higher end, or I don't know how we want to phrase that. They are absolutely forced to use the black market every day, all day. And there's just a turn the other head. But if you had dried cranberries on your salad, we can't overlook that, right? But if you're getting lobster, well, we can overlook that. That's kind of it's a big don't ask, don't tell kind of culture.
Well, I love many things about your book, but food to me is a perfect inroad into any culture. Like you said, it's the great unifier. But I think that the images that you pair with these recipes, I think really do bring to life, again, a place where fewer of us than normal really have had access to go. And it's fascinating. And I love hearing your kind of inside scoop on really what it's like and how it's changing. And
absolutely. And it's also this wonderful place where you are forced to be completely disconnected from the internet and from your cell phone and from all the other companies in the world that we do this with. And people there are talking, they're having conversations, they're thinking about things, they're discussing the things they're thinking about in a way that a lot of my friends have stopped doing, frankly, and sometimes we'll get to Cuba and I'll think, I haven't had a conversation with you in 2 years. We're just hanging out in the same room. Now we're going to chat. Now we're stuck together for 7 hours with no distractions.
Yeah, that's
so
beautiful.
It's amazing, and family is really important. People end up living with their families for much of their life. It's really unusual to be a Cuban and then go have your own apartment or your own house. So community is very strong, and I think there's a lot of joy in that. So what I notice beyond... what I noticed beyond the remarkability of invention and creation in Cubans, I also notice, there's just a palpable sense of joy. For people who have such limited options, they're so joyful. The culture is joyful and alive and vibrant and musical, and everybody dances or sings, or you're required to spend 2 years in art studying. That was really important to Fidel, and so everybody has to do that. And I think that's a real benefit, to learn something about an art. Really brings joy to your life. And you can see that in their culture. It's incredible, the spirit people have, and they're so resilient. And most families, someone has left. And so people have this internal pain and struggle, but they are so positive about everything. I have friends where 3 of their siblings don't live in Cuba, but they just still have this zest and love for life that I find is remarkable. And people aren't self-medicating. They're not taking prescription pills to go to sleep, and they're not drinking too much. In a country, if you make $25 a month and a bottle of rum is $7, you're probably not spending all of your money on that bottle of rum. So I really never have seen of course, there have to be some drunk Cubans, but that's not part of the culture. My friends have a drink and that's it, right? And that's just part of they don't understand the concept of
excess is not a thing that really exists there.
That's not a thing. Excess is a privilege.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. So there's a lot of joy in that culture despite the lack of constraints, absolutely.
Did somebody over here have a question?
Yeah.
I love that question. So how does having a camera change your relationship there? It sometimes might give you access, sometimes it might not. Like, what has that been like?
Yeah, I find that there are many times I don't use my camera. My last trip, I didn't take any pictures. I'm there so often that now I go to see... My last trip, one of my friends, it was her birthday. Another friend had an art gallery opening, so I went to see those things. And the only pictures I took were on my cell phone of like, hey, we're here together at the selfies. So sometimes I'm bringing my camera and sometimes I'm not. People are very receptive to being photographed. I find that cultural norms in countries really dictate that. So some countries I go to and every single person wants their picture taken by me. And I'm like, you'll never see this. Are you sure? When I went to China, every person near me wanted me to take their picture and wanted to be in my picture. Guatemala, nobody wanted their picture taken because in Mayan culture, they believe that you're stealing their soul. Most Cubans enjoy having their picture taken. And then, of course, there should be an exchange. I come from much more privilege than they do. And so if I take someone's photo, I'm giving them a meal, or I'm giving them some money, or I'm bringing them something. I think that's really important to me, to always be constantly giving back to everybody in Cuba. So when I go down and, for example, I have clothes there, I don't bring a suitcase anymore, but I bring 2 suitcases that are gigantic, and I check them because I'm bringing gifts for all the people I know, and then I bring extra gifts for other people.
That's fantastic.
So I bring guitar strings for musician friends. I bring tattoo needles for a tattoo friend. I bring canvas and paint for another friend. My lovely housekeeper that I'm always with, I bring her new bras because you can't get them. I bring her, lotions, and I bring her earrings and things. She just loves that kind of stuff. So it just depends on who I'm visiting at the time, but I'm always bringing something because I'm a guest still, no matter what, even though they all say I'm Cubano, I'm a guest, and I have so much, and I'm so grateful for what I have, and I know that anything that we can give to anyone there is more than they have. So
that's beautiful. I love that. Chef? Yeah. I'm just gonna This is what we've all been waiting for. Oh my gosh.
You guys, this looks
oh my gosh.
delicious.
Oh my gosh, chef.
Wow. Yum, 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 yum.
So that's the finished.
I
Beautiful.
mean,
Beautiful.
it's gorgeous.
You guys are really lucky that you get to eat like this every day. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not gonna lie. You had a question there?
What was the reaction of your Cuban friends to the book?
Oh, what did your Cuban friends think of the book?
So the book, it was a 2.5-year project. So they all, where's the book? How's the book? Ba-da-da. And I finally got to bring the book on I got back from my last trip 4 days ago. And I finally got to bring the book on the last trip. And Cubans, they're not accustomed to receiving gifts. It's just not part of the culture, right? When you don't have, you don't give. So you give a gift to somebody, and they say, "Oh, thank you," and you think, "Oh, I guess you're not really excited." And then a while later, you realize how excited they are, right? But it's not like the kid at Christmas unwrapping the paper screaming, which is kind of the response.
It's also just
I
like
when I
not
give a gift.
part of
It's
their
not part of
culture,
the culture, right?
Yeah.
So
I also like that response,
I like
by the way.
Yeah, but it's not. So I kept telling Kirk, I would give somebody my book, and they'd say, "Oh, thank you," and then they'd maybe go walk away or whatever. Maybe it was a restaurant, and I'd sit down and have a meal, and then I'd get up to use the restroom, and I'd look over, and then I would realize the entire staff was out of the kitchen and they were looking at every page of the book, and that was such an honor. I mean,
That's
was
beautiful.
Yeah, that to me was really worth every moment that I wanted to give up on this project. And when you're writing a book, there are a lot of times where you just want to be done and over it, and you're ready to say, I quit. But people really were grateful, and to see them genuinely, they were doing it in front of me. And I think that's what made it better. They were doing it, but it wasn't, show her we like
It's
this.
more genuine. Yeah,
And it was really, every single time, it was incredible. So, yeah, it was great. People are really pleased. And I put so many friends in it.
I was going to say, are your friends in there?
Yeah,
I love it.
So it's like a yearbook of my friends, right? Like Enrique, this is my friend Enrique, and he owns La Guarida, the most famous restaurant in Cuba. And in the front, we've got 2 of my drivers and one of my friends that's a guide. And it's just... it's like a yearbook of my Cuban life, basically. And so, these are my friends, and it's really fun, And then my friends...
What a privilege.
It's great. My friend and his dog are in the back, and yeah. And in the back of the book, I have a suggested itinerary, my favorite things to do. I have a section that's how to stock your pantry to prepare all of these easy dishes. There's a section, spruce up your Spanish, just a couple fun words. There's a list of Cuba's top restaurants, Rob, and bars, and the addresses of them. So you guys
you go.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not just a cookbook, it's a lot of things. It's really kind of a guide to Cuba, and there are always more. And then people who register online on my website, you'll get emailed some other tips about, is it okay to say that? Okay, yeah. You'll get registered some other information about Cuba that's not in the book. So that's fun too.
Very cool. So what are your favorite recipes from the book?
Oh, ropa vieja is my favorite dish in Cuba. It's the national dish of Cuba, and it's so flavorful. It's a low simmer. It's like a slow cooker recipe, basically. It's delicious. I love rice and beans. I'm always going to be a fan of that. Plantains, and this chicken is good. All the drink recipes are amazing. The cocktails, obviously, it's a place that, it's lively, rum. Let's have a cocktail and listen to music. Just the one. Maybe 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so ropa vieja is primarily a beef dish. So
Cubans improvise. That's the motto of Cuba, improvise. And so they'll use whatever they have, and that's usually pork. Pork is the most easy protein for a Cuban to get.
So a pork ropa vieja.
Yeah. In the book, the recipe's for beef, just because I know we're American, right? And where's the beef here, right? Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions? Yeah. Does the food change on different parts of the island?
That's such a great question. So my favorite part of the island is the Orient, and that is the area that is the countryside. And the food there it's farm to table, in the most original, authentic way farm to table exists. And there are a lot of restaurants that you can go to that are farms, and they bring everything from the farm. So you're eating straight out of the garden. And I would spend my whole life just in Vinales if I could. It's really, if I had the internet, I would live there permanently.
You're at Google, so we're happy that you said that.
Yeah, so can you make this happen for me, please?
Cuban
Great,
internet, send them loon balloons over to Cuba.
Get ready for me to be moving then.
I love it. Well, I know that
we're
getting some delicious bites plated up for you guys. Is there a couple of last questions? Yeah. Favorite Cuban restaurants here or in Cuba? In the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. My favorite Cuban restaurant in San Francisco is Medianoche. It's down in the Mission, and they're partnering with me on a number of events coming up.
Oh,
so it's really fun. Yeah, I love them. The food is fantastic. They have a lot of integrity in their ingredients and their recipes. It's owned by 2 women who are our peers. I love to support women in their endeavors, and it's really fun. They've been to Cuba. They've spent time there, and it's such a cute place. It's very pretty, and I love it. So yeah, Medianoche in the Mission.
Oh, favorite stories from the home kitchens.
Gosh, so many.
You're like so many.
So many stories. It's one of those places where every time I go, there's some wild story that happens. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, but it's just so nice to be invited into someone's home, and people are so generous. Santeria is one of the religions in Cuba, and it's similar to voodoo, but it's different. Anyway, if you are walking by anywhere and you hear drums, you are welcome to come in and be part of the Santeria festivities. And most of those involve cakes and many, 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 many cakes. And you're really encouraged to participate and dance and sing and eat. And you don't have to be a practitioner of Santeria, but it's just part of their culture, and it's expected that they will invite in visitors. And so that is a really neat way to be able to see inside of people's lives and homes. And people will shout down to you. You know, you'll hear drumming, and you'll be walking by, and somebody will be out on the balcony, and they'll shout down, and they'll be saying, come up, come up, come up. And then you come up, and suddenly you're in a room that is a quarter of this size, and there are 20 people that are dancing, and there's drumming, and there are like 40 cakes on the table. And so that is one of my favorite things about home-cooked Cuban food. Absolutely. It's pretty neat.
Super powerful. I love that visual. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, on behalf of Google, thank you.
Thank you, guys.